Okay, we're on.
Okay. 6:31, call to order the special meeting for the Bandera Economic Development Corporation Wednesday, June 3rd at 6:30 p.m. We have Lee Carell present, Andrea Jakowski, Tony Kuntz, Laura Davenport, Lynn Palmer is absent, and present is Darcy Hasty. We have the first round is consent agenda. We have an issue with the 23rd of April. We both felt like we had read them, and for some reason, so that's not as part of the consent agenda. But the rest is has been sent to y'all for review. Entertain motions.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agendas except for the April 23rd minutes, which will be sent out at a later date.
Those in favor?
Or no?
Well, the consent agenda, there's no discussion for that, unless we needed to pull it out. Okay, would
You want me to
okay,
rescind
what
my
is-
motion?
Hold on, I'm gonna ask Megan, what is the protocol for that? She just wants to make a comment during consent agenda, but it clearly states no discussion. Or it says only limited discussion, maybe that might be our out. Okay, okay, very good. So go ahead, Andrew.
No, I was just gonna ask if our minutes could be more detailed. I feel like it doesn't, you know, really represent a lot of this discussion. Is that, you know,
When this is going to get
Yeah, I was
too
gonna
windy.
say that's probably more of a discussion.
okay, I don't know a better time to bring that up.
No, I understand.
End of the meeting. Last one?
For now.
Or, yeah, like the discussion. It's
so-
for items for the next agenda.
Okay. How do I recall a vote? Because I called for those in favor, and we had everybody in favor except for Andrea, because she abstained only because she wanted to make a comment.
So she can still vote, or do you
She
want
can,
you
but-
want to go back to discussion?
Okay, I think we're a little too high. Okay,
I
so
think we
those
are
in
too.
favor are Laura, Darcy, and Lee, and then those opposed.
Yes, I oppose whatever we voting
Consent
on.
agenda minus the 23rd.
Sorry, that was late. My
okay.
watch was wrong. I've got 6:30 right now. I'm sorry, could you just say what you do?
Laura made a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the 23rd of April, which are not included. Darcy seconded. Those were in favor, and then Andrew wanted to ask a question, and we're kind of into it. So we're going to go ahead and call the vote, and then we'll discuss it.
So this doesn't include the minutes
Doesn't
for
include the
April.
minutes for
Okay.
April 23rd.
Okay.
So those in favor, you're included in the favor. Lynn Palmer's included in the favor, as is Andrea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's give her that very comments, because we've actually had a good discussion with Megan, and she's under a different kind of training. And so, yeah. Okay. So item 3, update from,
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Oh. I guess I'm lost here. Are we?
so all we did was call to order the meeting, and we did consent agenda. We're on item 3. You're all caught up. That's okay. Take a second. That's good. Read. It's all good. Okay. So, Laura, would you like to do your update?
Just for updates from the board, yes.
Just from the vice president.
I sent y'all all an email just before the meeting. Patricia Moore sent me link from Texas Highways for free publicity for local businesses in Texas Highways magazine. And I sent everyone, it's just a little brief form, and the more Bandera businesses we have fill this out, the better Bandera looks and the more they put in there. So I sent it to all of y'all and several other people that I thought would be interested. And please forward it to friends, and let's get Bandera some free publicity in Texas Highways Magazine.
I didn't get a chance to read your email, but I'm sure it's probably a good thing to happen for Bandera.
I think so. And I just got it right before this meeting. But rather than print out copies, I thought it would be something that everybody would want in email format. So that's why I sent it. And Cindy Beckham from the BBA asked me to remind everybody that 4th of July actually falls on a Saturday this year. So, you know, she wanted to see if everybody could kind of talk up 4th of July and make that a little bit.
Most companies are off on Friday, right? If it's Saturday, it's usually Friday, but Sunday.
Yeah, usually. Of course, you know, this year, who knows? All sorts of things could happen. But anyway.
So we're already past the consent agenda. Okay.
That's what you,
Because
that's what you came in on.
yeah, because I really did want to not vote for the whole consent agenda because I had something to add on the April 30th meeting that we had regarding the minutes, but I guess I missed all that. So
let's,
can just-
let's wait for that to board comments. With it being in the consent agenda, when you get it in email, if you can send your update back to Megan, if it's just typos or different things, that she can just add it in for the final copy. And then if she needs to reprint it for us in the meeting, then she can do that. So,
but I can maybe bring it up at discussion at the end of the meeting then.
Yeah.
But
yeah, just, and if it's typos.
I'm
or
sorry I was
something.
late.
Okay.
I think that's all I had.
So in the 30th meeting, we had made a motion to add eligibility and qualifications to the application and the cover sheet and refer to Exhibit A in the all resolution. I went ahead and made that update and sent it to Jill to get on, so it's on the EDC website, and they've been giving out the new applications. So
And is the application have the email address? Asking for the email
it
address?
does. I added that on there. And then we have a, I think Lynn had sent me an email on this right for the meeting. We've had a total of 47 applications received. We've had 33 that were approved. The funding total of that 33 is $59,559.43. There are 7 pending additional information. There were 6 that collected hot tax only and no sales tax, so they were not considered in the eligibility. And 1 was denied simply because of lack of response. We've attempted to contact them several times, and we have letters drafted on all of the ones that for the hot tax, and the other ones we have sent those out. But we've got letters to finish that information out with them. A reminder on the EDC working group, everybody can be involved in that if they want to. And per the attorney, our discussion in our meeting on when he was involved on, I guess that was the 30th, you know, it was our understanding that there would be a core group that would make sure standard eligibility and qualifications were being examined evenly and the same, that everybody was under the same criteria. We were all looking at the exact same thing when it came to sales tax, when it came to property tax, when it came to eligibility, essential, non-essential. And and then the list itself was going to be divided out on whoever volunteered. I know that you weren't here when we took the first round of volunteers, and Lee, you had Mother's Day coming up, and so you had said that, you know, you weren't going to be able to be involved. That doesn't mean that y'all can't be involved. I mean, y'all could have stepped up at any time, and we would have gladly given you your round of applications. But what we did, but what we did was we divided them up. We each had our names on them, and we were taking those applications and calling them and explaining that we needed a little further information to determine how much money we could give them. That they qualified based on proving that their eligibility for the city tax, but that what they had given us either didn't add up to their full qualification based on essential or non-essential, And they would have the opportunity to submit mortgage or utilities or rent utilities to get the full amount if they didn't already qualify with what they already submitted. So if anybody had an issue with their particular applicant or had a question or didn't fit in the box, and there was a couple other ones that happened, they were to come back to the core committee, so that at no point was there any more than 3 people discussing an application. So there was never, should have never been a quorum. So anytime anybody discussed outside of that group, any application, then it was a walking quorum. And that has been verified. Lynn sent an email, copied the attorney, and once again, has been verified and cost us money again to get the verification on something that is very clear on the Texas Open Meetings Act that it's a walking quorum. And we decided at the meeting with the attorney that we would not contact the attorney for our own personal agendas, and that we would have the chance as a board to discuss them and determine, and it could be a learning experience for all of us, right? We can discuss it, decide who, maybe we've already asked the attorney that. Laura, Andrea, and I have all been here for a while. We've had questions go to the attorney. We already have official information. So it could be a learning thing for the board to discuss attorney information or rulings. So with that said, going forward with the application process, that we can keep this moving forward if everybody stays in their lane. And it's not to be over controlling. It's just to streamline the process to make sure everybody's being treated the same way, being under the same scrutiny, and that we do not violate the TOMA Act. It's not that we're looking for a loophole. It just is what it is. And if there's an issue where one of the applications does not fall in the box, then we bring it back to the board and we discuss it openly. And we do have some of those tonight, which I added to the agenda. So that is how the working group should work. We only have, I know of two applications that we've sent an email recently that we have not gotten back, and I've gotten one that submitted no supporting information. So there's a possible of 3 coming up soon. So if anybody wants to be involved in that, please reach out, and we'll keep that going with those guidelines. And so any questions on that? Go ahead.
I just wanted to explain the reason why I did contact the attorney. It was because of an email that was sent saying that we could talk to you. So that means I could talk to you and 2 other people.
So I misrepresented that. No, because that's actually not in this part, the attorney part. So
it is because you brought it up. You brought up
No.
the fact that I contacted
I know,
the
but we
attorney.
don't need
and
justification as to
the
why you
reason
did it.
I contacted the attorney is because you
Again.
gave misinformation.
Again, you could have come back to me, and I had already planned on telling you in the meeting that I did misrepresent that. And because I'm used to
So
saying.
there was a reason why I wanted to get an attorney's opinion.
It still
on it.
doesn't matter. It's still within the TOMA. If it's a quorum, you're big enough to count. You knew I was wrong. You came
I
back.
did not know you were wrong. That's why I asked for opinion.
But
I
you
did
don't
not
need to
know.
know
I did
when
not know that you were a voting member. But
Again,
everybody
that's
needs to know
in our
that
bylaws.
you are a
That's in
voting
our
member.
bylaws. You don't need an attorney opinion. We did not need to pay for that. It's in our bylaws.
No, I wanted
So-
to get the
but,
attorney's
okay.
opinion on your email that you said that we
Right.
could.
And
I could contact you
Okay.
and 2 other people.
we're
That's
done
4.
with this conversation.
Hey,
We're done with it. So, okay. Point noted.
Thank you.
So any other questions on the application process itself, on how it will, if those involved will not violate the Texas Open Meetings Act? And would y'all like to be involved in the next processes? Would you like your own applications to follow up on that?
Sure.
So then the next one's the one.
So what's the appropriate way, if you have a question for the attorney, are we not allowed to contact? the
Not
attorney?
directly. So we as a board agreed that we're responsible for our budget. And so if the answer has already been asked and answered, or it's in our bylaws, or, because some people are new to the group, so they don't know, right? So some people don't know. And so that could have already been asked and answered, and we don't have to pay X amount of dollars per hour or per email to answer a question that would have been, she could have said, I thought that 3 or more, aren't you a voting member? And I would have said, yes, I'm used to writing. Only reply to 2 other board members. In this particular email, I used that same verbiage, but I was also telling her to reply to me, and I added that verbiage as a routine, and so I misrepresented. But 4 people talking about a single subject is in violation of the TOMA Act if we are ever going to bring it up in front of this board to discuss openly and make a decision and act on it.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to clarify if you have a question for the attorney. You have to go through you.
So
I mean, we.
Okay,
that
so
question
have to
you
is-
and then you go to the attorney, or
so
I'm just.
ideally, okay, let's get, so ideally, which again, we're kind of out of order here, but ideally, you would ask the question, and I can refer to you to statute or to the bylaws or whatever, and say, this is what it says, and quote it back to you. If that does not satisfy you, then we can bring it to, or I can put it on the agenda item to discuss. And if we, as a group, cannot satisfy it, and we still decide to go to the attorney, then I will send it on the attorney and I will forward his answer to you. To me, that is the only way to keep, number one, the budget under control, because we are all responsible for that. And we have a budget that's a specific amount. And if we need to go over that and we decide it's relevant and need to go over that, but we need to have some sort of control and some sort of transparency for the rest of the group. You can't have just somebody sending the attorney stuff. Go ahead.
Once again, the reason why I sent that to the attorney is because you were sending out emails accusing everybody else of TOMA, and you were,
No, ma'am, I was not accusing
Yes,
everyone else. I was
yes, you
accusing
did.
you of in violation of TOMA.
I believe
And the
you
only reason I
accused
did it,
Andrea as well.
No, I didn't. Well, that was an accident. That was an accident. She replied all. And that was an accident. She replied all. And I said, I'm not going to respond to this because you're voicing an opinion and that was a
And in
learning.
your
I think that was a
opinion-
learning.
In your opinion, it's in violation of the TOMA, is what you said. So that was the reason why I got an attorney's opinion. You were accusing everybody else, and then you sent an email saying that we could talk to 4.
Again, if we'd have talked about this, we have people, Megan she's got certifications in parliamentary, and she knows what the Texas Open Meetings Act is. Darcy is versed in it. She's on many boards where she has to take it. You're on city council. You have taken it how many years now? So Andrew's been on EDC for a while. I'm pretty sure that we would have been able to settle that here in this room without paying an attorney. And you could have, I could have admitted my error right then, as I am now.
We weren't having a meet. We didn't have any meet to be able to discuss it.
Yeah, it wasn't an emergency situation. So anyway, to me, that's the only way to have everybody be responsible and have their ability to voice whether or not something goes to an attorney or not, and whether or not it's a legitimate reason. Laura?
Has everybody taken their training? We're supposed to have it every 2 years.
I think Megan sent it out, didn't
I know it
doesn't take very long.
it does, it doesn't take that long, and it is a little redundant, but every time you listen to it, you do pick up a few new things. So,
It's extremely important.
and it's we've got to have it for the board. So if everybody could get that in before our next meeting, I think that'd be a good
And
idea.
that's what I was gonna say. Is there a cutoff? Is there a deadline when the directors are supposed to have that completed, do you know, or?
Well, you're supposed to do it as soon as possible. We could just, let's give ourselves all a deadline.
I think with a
Of the
small
next meeting.
community like
Is that
ours,
agreeable, everybody?
I think with a small community like ours, where we find ourselves in the same room with each other quite a bit, it's extremely important to know what you can and cannot say in front of your other board members. Okay, moving on. Let's see.
Before we move on, if I can say, I think that if we need the attorney's opinion on something, that the board should be able to contact the attorney. That's just me.
We already agreed in a previous meeting, although we didn't vote on it, we did agree to do this.
And we've done a lot of consensus that hasn't followed through on, so.
We can write those out in an email, and we can address them in a future agenda item if you would like. I would be glad to. Does anybody have any objection to doing it this way? I mean, if there's an emergent situation, that would be different, but does anybody have any objection to doing it this way, to have the question come to the board for discussion? Marcy?
My 2 cents is that I think that it is absolutely reasonable to do it the way that you're suggesting. If there's an emergent situation, say Lynn and I don't like something that you're saying, we think it's without bounds, and we don't think you're gonna afford it, then, 2 or 3 of us, without overreaching out of Toma, maybe we could even reach out to Laura, then we should be able to do that and go to the attorney without,
I have no problem with that. I would like to have the opportunity for anyone to discuss it in front of the board, but obviously if there's an emergency situation, then that cannot be happening.
and it's not legally binding. We haven't signed a contract saying we can't contact the attorney, and I agree with we need to stay within a budget. That's a good way to stay within a budget. However, if we feel that there's a true emergency and me and I are talking about something, no, this needs to be handled right this second, we can still go to the attorney. It may make you mad, but that's okay.
Okay, we'll be off to kind of.
Thank you.
No, I mean, well, no, and I agree with you.
Thank you.
It's a board thing, but
What I'm saying is I think that it's reasonable to do what you're saying.
it is
And I think all of
reasonable
us
when you
can
have
agree.
reasonable people making that decision. It is not reasonable when you're having people making that decision that can't read a bylaw and interpret it themselves.
But I think
Or decide that's an emergency situation.
Or you have a president that's giving out the wrong information.
I think that we should say, we can go, hey, what do you think about this? And instead of just me going, I don't like that, so I'm gonna call the attorney. If you have a question or you think something, at least contact one other person. And I will say that I will agree to that. If I have an issue with something, I will contact at least one other person before I will call or reach out to the attorney. If I feel that it's that emergent and I can't go to you about it, so.
Definition of emergent for everybody is different. And I have no problem with the theory of what you're saying, but it clearly is, the definition is. Okay, moving on. Think about that. We've been on the agenda item. I'm sure the attorney will ask for an actual motion because this is going to be on which way, because he's probably not going to get stuck in the middle of our politics. So he's going to want to know exactly what we want and in writing in order for him to know or not know whether or not to
Respond.
Well, and I think most of us are, at least several of us should write up our own motion and talk about it.
All right, so we'll put that as a future agenda item for action.
This information about the certification is on page 12 in the binder. The link is there, and it says to be in the first 60 days of new members to take.
I thought it had.
Thank you, Megan.
Mhm.
I couldn't remember the 60 days, sorry. But I knew it was right away, so.
I was thinking it was 60 or 90, but I couldn't remember. Okay. So we've received, this again is still under the update, we've received some grant applications for, not stimulus grants, but like building improvement grants that we received right after we started the stimulus program. So I just wanted y'all to know that we are holding those, that we'll probably put them on the June agenda to discuss, because that way we will have kind of know where we are the fourth Thursday of this month. So, it's like we are in June. I just thought, this is really our main meeting. So, yeah, I have that thought too. So we'll put it on our June regular meeting to discuss, because we'll need to be looking at budget, which is what we've moved out of those. What we originally set for those grants for budgets in the beginning, we moved those out to create the $100,000 item for the stimulus. So I think in a few weeks we'll have kind of a better idea. The other thing is that with the applications, we have quite a list of, we originally started out with a list of businesses that we got from the code enforcement officer here. We found some that were not on there. But there's a lot of people that we felt that we kind of earmarked, people that could probably apply and that we have not gotten applications for. So I would hate to dismiss them if they're not on social media, because that's really the most place that we have put it out in word of mouth. So I would like to get some volunteers that would maybe take some of that off the list and try to contact some of those businesses and just say, I want you to know that you could be eligible for this, and maybe do a pre-screening. Do you collect sales tax for the city? And if you do, then you're eligible for this, and then just send.
They have to be current on their property tax as well to be eligible. It's a requirement.
To be eligible, they just have to collect city tax. To
No,
qualify
you have to, one of the requirements
to
is
qualify for the
the
funding.
property tax. Current on property tax is a requirement on Exhibit A of the resolution. So be sure you give the people the right information.
Well, the resolution is attached to the application.
Is it?
So the resolution,
Exhibit A.
Is it attached to the application?
just got through
New
telling me to put it up
application.
on the application.
Outside?
I would have to read the resolution, but I do not believe that. I believe the only criteria was those that were sales, those that were collecting sales tax for their qualification was their eligibility, and then their qualification to receive the funding was that they were up to date on their property tax and they're based on non-essential leases. But it doesn't really matter. Whatever you decide to tell them when you call them. The whole point of the conversation is to get information out to people that have not applied yet. I'm not telling you what to say.
Well, then can I read the requirement? Because I have the resolution right here.
It doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking
It is,
No,
because
no.
you said when we
about.
go
I just
to,
backed it off and I said, I'm not telling you what to say. All I want to know is who would like to help us with the list of contacting
but
people.
I want to make sure the businesses get the correct information.
will get
And the
the correct
requirements
information.
say must be
Okay.
current on sales tax and property tax related to the business.
Then
So please, let's give them the correct information.
nobody's going to give them incorrect information.
Okay.
So, who would like to be involved in calling some of the people? Okay, thank you, Andrea. Lynn,
Are we calling them or are we taking them applications?
whatever you would like to do.
Well, I just have a question because when I approached my list of businesses and I called them to tell them that they needed to submit a copy of their paid sales paid sales tax to the city, and that they needed to email it to Megan. And then I followed up with another conversation. I got an email from Laura saying that I wasn't supposed to be contacting them, that the applicants have already submitted their sales tax, and that everything is supposed to be going to Megan.
So in the case of when we had the first applications, many of them had already submitted. So if you were taking new applications out, then that probably would not have been the case. But I mean,
That conversation.
that
was
conversation, I
specific
believe,
to
had to do with ones that were existing.
application.
What
So we're not
existed.
talking about those right now. And
No,
I'm
but
bringing
the
it back to
one-
the point
the
of we're
one-
already 30 minutes in and we're just on status. We're done. I'm done. So the whole point of this is a status on the applications as they exist, and the whole process is what I'm giving you. The next step to the process is to try to get out to the businesses that we have not heard from yet that we feel qualified. Now, how we do that is not for this discussion. I'm only putting that out there that is the next step in the process and asking for volunteers, and the working group can determine how that's done at a later time. Period. So anybody else would like?
I'm just going to suggest that if those that approach the applicants, if they tell them
Okay,
to
ma'am.
submit
Lynn, I've already
the
said, we
paid
heard you the first time.
sales tax to
I'm-
the city.
Do I need to ask for you to be removed?
Oh, no.
Okay, then I've already asked, like I said, we can decide a process on however you want to do that when we divvy it up. But this was only to give a status of the process. This is the next step I need volunteers for, and that is all I need at this point. It is not an agenda item to discuss in great detail. So, all right, so the next item is, actually, I'm gonna say that. Okay. Any questions on any of the statuses and the process that has just been discussed of the applications? Yes, ma'am.
The process is what? What's the process? That's what I want to know what the process is. Because when I tried to follow the process, I was told I was not doing it correctly. So please explain the process.
So I explained it earlier. Were you here when that happened? Because you came in on the consent agenda, so I said it. So the process is that there are, Megan is the key point to make sure that everybody's sales tax and everything is documented the same way. So then I was in that role of helping her, and then I went into the hospital and Laura stepped in. So automatically that became the three people that had already started talking, three people that had started talking about it. She is not a voting member, so that is still not a quorum. So one other person, whoever has their assigned application, goes out and does what they're supposed to do as far as getting additional information. This next step will be letting them know that they possibly qualify for, and ask them if they would like to submit an application. And if they do, we can email it to them or bring it by to them. If you want to do it in person, that's up to you. And then you would follow through with making sure that they provide proof of city sales tax, rent plus utilities, or mortgage plus utilities, and determine and based on whether or not they're essential or non-essential, you would explain to them that how much money they could qualify for based on those criteria. So then you submit it to Megan, and she goes through the whole process of verifying the same way as that she does through the comptroller, the property tax, make sure everybody's submitting the same thing as far as canceled checks, not just written checks. In some cases, we had people that had just submitted copies. They keep copies of the checks that they give their renters just for their own record, but it wasn't a copy of the canceled check. It wasn't like the back of it. So, so we asked for actual proof of payment. So there were different things that we wanted to make sure that everybody was being asked of the same proof. And so just to send that kind of through one person is easier to do that.
So what I was telling my list of businesses that did not submit a copy of the paid sales tax, I told them that they needed to send everything to Megan. And then that was the end of it.
That's
Yeah,
perfect.
perfect.
And that was
That's
the
exactly.
end of it.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that Bandera EDC Gmail is our official account, which we will pass from board to board to board, as is the one with the chair. We'll go from board to board. And so we don't delete anything from our accounts. And so the next person will have access to whatever you send to those accounts. So it's completely transparent. If they ever need to do research, we've done that with Deanna's. It's come in handy. There were some things that, happened with the Chamber of Commerce application that I needed to get in to look and see what they sent. So it's good to have that history. In this day and age, and we don't have an office or server or anything on our own, we kind of creating on what we're doing. And so yes, so that's perfect.
So I haven't looked at the current application with the email, but do we have the Bandera EDC email address on that application as well?
It's on the top. It's
Is it
been
on the
on,
top?
the
Because
applications of all of them. It's the header of the application on the very
With
top.
the-
It gives the city hall phone number. It gives the Bandera EDC email. And then also in the application, it says submit this application or any supporting documentation to Bandera EDC email.
So that's what I told them as well, just to send
So-
everything.
So we
And
can
that
have
was all in the
documentation.
that's all in the original
That's-
application. So. Okay. Any other questions on the process? Okay. All right. Very good. So I had listed a couple things for your status that you didn't mention. Concerns voiced by the businesses, just as the attorney had advised us in our last meeting, that some additional information that we were asking for and requiring them made them uncomfortable, and ultimately was not a very good, pleasant experience for you to to deal with them. So
I didn't have any problems.
well, I think she got the ones in town that are kind of known for being anyway. It wasn't very pleasant. She got hung up on twice. Their partners had ultimately called them back and apologized and said, "I'm sorry, they were so rude." And one of them just said, "I'm not submitting you anything else. Pay us based on what we sent you." And now they're calling City Hall. They're calling the BBA president. They're calling everybody in town looking for their check when Was it just
I don't
yesterday
think
or
we should be
Friday?
discussing
It's open,
into-
right? I'm just saying,
that depth.
so it is an issue in that exactly what we talked about with the attorney on the information that we ask of people. Sometimes it just doesn't make them feel too comfortable when we get too personal. And to me, we're not even asking all that much information. So if we're starting up something at this point, I can just imagine on some of the other things we've talked about. So
Can I ask, what was it they had an issue with? What was the question they had from?
well,
None,
so,
none of our blank business,
About
what
the
they
sales
pay,
tax?
no, what they pay for rent and utilities.
Oh,
was any of our business, any of our blanking business,
and you said that that was the city council's requirement, right?
which didn't help the situation.
You did
By the
tell me
way,
that was
Well,
what the
then,
city council
as far as
required.
I'm concerned,
I
if
guess
they're
I'd
gonna
say
submit
that.
the required information, they don't get the grant.
That's
I wouldn't
right.
say to like
They don't get the
dictate,
money.
I'm sorry,
No, I understand that.
dictate to us.
Well,
the
I was trying-
process.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was trying to
it's-
go above and beyond because their sales tax
Didn't
was
meet.
not that great, and
Didn't
I knew that their rent plus utilities would yield them a lot more money.
Well, I think if they come
So
back
we gave-
like that, then we just,
Bottom line is we
That's
gave them
what
the
we do.
opportunity, we paid them based on what they gave us, and we moved on. The only part that I think we should bring it up is that I think city council needs to know that this is sensitive information, and that if we decide to go around two and have different eligibility, that maybe we need to consider some other things other than, I'm not saying we're asking anything wrong, but some of the stuff that we talked about asking, I felt uncomfortable asking when y'all were talking about it, and even we brought
but
it up
those
with
are
the
what we're
attorney.
talking about right now.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's my point, is that
We're
if
not
we
talking about that.
move further down that road, if we're already getting 10%, three of them, right? 10% of 30. Three of them had issues with it, then I could just imagine, I'll just put that in your head for future
Yeah.
lessons learned is all it is. And then the other one was Laura sent a request to the city or to the mayor today to ask them to put on the agenda accepting EDC applications for Rhonda's or for seats on, start gathering applications for the EDC. And also to consider the fact that we've received the hot tax applications that don't qualify based on the current current
Resolution.
qualifications and eligibility. And so ask the mayor to consider the city council do something for the hot tax people because they are hitting pretty bad. So Laura really wanted to do that, so she reached out and I asked her to include the other applications. Okay, so go ahead, Lynn.
No, I don't think that's a bad idea for, if we have some money left over that the businesses aren't coming for, then, I hope that the city council would
I
consider
felt,
that.
I felt we at least needed to ask.
Okay, so Ms. Megan, I didn't put you on here, but I used to include you on here with us. Did we forget anything that we should be giving as an update for status? Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4. Discussion of possible action to accept Rhonda Carell's resignation from her county resident with business in the city limits EDC seat effective May 8th, 2020.
Make a motion that we accept Rhonda Carell's resignation.
One second.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion? Those in favor? All in favor?
I just want to thank her for her service
Yes.
to the board.
Definitely.
Okay, moving on to item 5.
Wait, go ahead. Do we need a motion? I don't, since you took my agenda, do we need a motion on who's to make someone sign? No, okay,
I
okay.
think it's later down.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
What agenda are we using? Because I have this agenda that was sent out by Megan, and then there's 2 different agendas.
So there was an agenda sent out last week, and then I added one thing because the city had submitted the,
That was last week.
that's last
That's
week.
last
The date on
week's, I
top. It says regular meeting or
It
special.
says Wednesday, June 3rd. This is the agenda I have. So
That's the same one.
is it?
Yeah, so update, we just got through the update. We just got through the update of the
But
president.
this is not the same.
No, she just asked about that.
No, I've got it on my agenda here. It's 2 different agendas. What agenda do you have? Oh, the old one. I mean, most of it's the same
Okay,
except for that.
Well, none of this, I don't know where you got this, because none of this up here is filled out. This is not what was posted.
But that was sent to me.
I don't know. I don't know.
It was
Did
sent
y'all
to me
get-
by Megan. Didn't you send me this agenda? I mean, let me show you. I don't know where else I would have gotten it. I don't know where else I would have gotten this agenda.
Yeah, that was the one Megan sent out. You sent it an email today just to her, I guess, or no? I guess you sent it out to everybody on yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday. Yeah, that wasn't the completed one. It doesn't have, that's not the official. I'm pretty sure I thought I sent it out last week or after it was posted.
Okay.
No,
Well,
you didn't. I don't think.
I took the one off the EDC website. That's the old one that I have, and then I printed this one out today for this agenda.
There was,
This is
this
what's
one
posted.
should be right to the left. If then I'll make another
This
copy.
one,
This actual one that I printed from the website.
but where did this one come from?
I'll have to
I
look
think I
back.
copied you on the one I sent to Jill,
Oh,
and then
The
she,
draft,
and then she fixes everything.
the draft agenda.
So we're not going to be able to discuss those things that I thought we were going to discuss them. They're not on the agenda. But I thought they were on the agenda because they're on
They're
this
not.
agenda.
They weren't, they were removed, and I mean, we can discuss it, I'll find a place where you discuss them, but they were removed because of my discussion that I responded to your email today. But as I told you in email, you will still be able to discuss them, they're just not going to be listed on the agenda. Okay, can we move on? So number 5. Discussion and possible action regarding receipts received for approval of the performance agreement of $4,000 grant for the Arthur Nagel Community Clinic for 1116 12th Street. So this was approved previously, and we were just pending receipts, and they were submitted to y'all.
I make a motion that we accept the receipts regarding the Arthur Nagel clinic and approve the performance.
Thank you. Any discussion? Those in favor? All in favor? None opposed. All right, number 6, discussion and possible action regarding the 2020 Christmas lights in the park. Laura is always forethinking this. She's been in the middle of this for 2 years in a row, a little too late and a little too, yeah. So I'll let you read it.
Just basically, it was this time last year that we started our discussion actually on what we were going to do with Christmas lights. And it was decided that each year we would possibly offer it up to whatever nonprofit or that wanted to do it. I know this is a very unusual year, but I don't want us to get any further down the road and all of a sudden it's like, oh, heck, nobody's thought about Christmas lights.
So the
So,
Boys and Girls Club don't want to do it this year.
So we had a bunch of feedback last year about the fact that we gave it to the Boys and Girls Club and we didn't put it out for bid
right.
for other nonprofits to take to be able to do it, to present their
Oh.
yeah. It's all coming back to
Now I
me.
remember.
So, we did it because we were kind of under the gun. They approached us. It wasn't going to happen really because nobody had seemed too interested in it, and they approached us. So we didn't think that anybody wanted to do it. It's not exactly the easiest task. So,
Did they end up, did they end up paying somebody to do it? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
so what they
Yes.
did was they came to us, Boys and Girls Club came to us and
Right.
said, we're going to get the kids involved. This is going to be a kids project. We're going to teach them how to do this. And we've got the people that had done it the year before. And they were giving a bid. They cut it a little bit because they were going to have more resources through the Boys and Girls Club and not just them doing it themselves and having to hire. So they came in under budget and so they the Boys and Girls Club were hoping to be able to make a little bit of profit on that. I don't think that turned out the way they had expected. I don't think it was awful, but I mean, there were definitely some different things going on with learning curves and stuff. And so we were asked specifically last year to entertain putting it out for a bid for other nonprofits to take it on and to do something with it. So that's where we are.
I would like to see us possibly, put it in both the newspapers and have the nonprofits that are interested contact us. I don't know how the rest of y'all feel.
Did we pay them? I thought we just reimbursed them for Christmas lights that they replaced. We didn't actually pay them.
So
They
we
were
said-
going to do their own fundraising or something.
So
Am I wrong? I don't
You're
know.
not wrong. So we
You're not
supplied
wrong.
them with the lights.
Right.
They went through, the kids strung them out and checked them all. And they knew how much they needed for exactly what displays. And we did give a budget to replace the ones that were not working anymore. But everything else was on them. They paid the contractor to put them, Boys and Girls Club paid the contractor to put them up, and whatever money they received in donation was reimbursing the till. You're not wrong, but both of those
You're
things
right.
happened.
And then the courthouse volunteers,
Right.
did their own replacement lights and divided everything up. And there's a lot of different ways this could be handled. I do think we need to start thinking about it now rather than later.
Darcy.
So we'd be going out for bid for what? But the nonprofits would be paying the city?
No, it's not really paying us. We own the lights. We kind of acquired the lights through a strange little transaction. But we acquired the lights, and so what I would think was that we have people approach us with their plan on what we just give them the lights to use, and we can incorporate money to replace lights if we want to do that as well. And we set a little budget for that and said up to such and such we would replace lights or even enhance it. But they came to us and they gave their plan on how they were going to do it and how they were going to involve the community and we have to agree to that. Because I mean, it has to be professional to some degree, because we don't want to give it to someone that's not going to do it or that's not going to do it timely, because it's really, I mean, they do the lighting. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving, or is it Thanksgiving night?
Well, it was supposed to be the Friday after
Was it
Thanksgiving,
the
but
rain or lightning?
yes, the weather didn't permit.
Right, but whoever it is, I mean, it's a big ordeal to get it up and ready to light Thanksgiving night or Friday, whatever one they do, and then the last day I think is New Year's night, and so January 2nd.
No, they took it through the whole week of New Year's.
I don't think that was in the contract to actually supposed to happen, but I'm not opposed to that, but because that's the city. They had, because they ultimately go into an agreement with the city at that point to use the park. The city pays for the electricity, and they make sure all of the the plugs and everything are in working order. So if we had a flood or something down there, the city would be in charge of making sure all of the electricity and all of that is working. And they have what they need. And I know the city did a lot of
Added
stuff.
some extra
They
plugs.
added some extra plugs, knowing where some of the stuff was pretty big last year, some of the bigger things. So it's a whole circle thing, but they ultimately enter into the contract with the city to use the park. Go ahead.
So last year, it was a really pretty display. I know that they contracted a certain person to do that, to get all of that up. So that is not what the EDC owns then. EDC owns only the lights. And so the nonprofits would have to come up with their own kind of displays and designs and all of that with just our lights.
So,
Is what
so
you're
there
saying.
there are actual formations that the lights go on that is a part of the lights.
Okay.
The tree
Like the
formations,
flag,
the
the
tree
camels.
formations, the flags, and then the other piece too is out of those lights, we gave 3 small, 3 medium, 3 large, and 1 giant tree and something to light the nativity scene. I remember that because that was my motion. and one giant tree with a star on top. That's how it was told to me.
And a
That
partridge
went
in a pear
on,
tree.
yeah, exactly, that went on the courthouse lawn. And the county actually did their own to decorate that, but they used those, that part of the lights is already kind of separated for that. And so the rest of them go in the park.
So those trees are ours?
That we
Yes.
own them.
Oh,
We
okay,
own
so the trees are ours.
The
Okay,
lights,
okay,
the lights.
but the metal frames for the trees, are those ours?
Yes. Yes, they all
No,
go
I
together.
thought Jack built, he built a bunch of those last year.
We did not think of that. Okay, well, we'll have to confirm, but I'm,
No.
because
Because
Because I thought
I don't
when,
know how you think that, because we were
Yeah.
there together at the comics box when Heather, that was the first thing Heather and Steve did. They separated those trees and the nails and all of the formations and the pole that goes up.
right,
They were all,
but
and
I
he
know,
might have done
and
more.
he did, he came in and made some.
Okay.
I
he might have
thought
done.
Jeannie Strickland's husband.
He may have,
Originally,
but
maybe. but
Yeah,
it
I'm
just
just
doesn't
wondering what
matter.
we're telling of the nonprofits, what we're telling them.
I'm just
You can
saying,
have the
come on,
lights, you
18
can have
trees plus the-
displays, what are we telling them they can use?
19 trees plus the lights go to the courthouse.
Oh.
If they ask for them again, which is what they did last year. The rest of them, which is everything you saw in City Park, every light and everything, is owned by the EDC, the flag, the formations, the angels, the whatever.
Okay.
So there's wooden cutouts that had business names on them that the BDA took back.
Right.
And so we do not have those, and they are not a part of this unless they want to be at some point. So that's up to them. So it's lights, the forms, and all of that.
I think they returned a lot of those to the,
And that was the
business
plan.
owner. That was the
I haven't-
plan.
I
I got
haven't
mine.
done anything after that.
okay,
So,
well, I know I'll put you on the list for you. So basically, we want the nonprofits to come to us with a proposal,
or any organization.
or any organization.
Any organization.
And it may be several organizations going together. And it might turn out that maybe it just turns into a community event. You know,
Which is what we've wanted to see
That's
for
what-
quite some time.
right. But we're open for ideas, I guess.
I know Lions Club is very interested, we've talked about it, Lions Club is very interested.
That would be great.
I'm
So,
not a Christian.
well, good.
We're
Good.
trying to get Heather and her husband to join.
It would definitely be the ones that have done it enough to at least give you some lessons. But
School
yeah,
hard
it's just
knocks.
it's really who we feel comfortable following through with it and really taking it and making sure it's up and down at the same time and fulfilling a contract
Because it
with
really
the
is a
city.
program.
It really is a
really
program. I mean,
Right.
yeah. So,
Do we have a contract? What's
um,
worth the expectations?
we had a-
so that-
We had a
That'd be a good
performance
idea.
agreement.
So we had a performance agreement that they borrow the lights from us. Everything else came from the city because it's a city park, and the opening and closing of City Park, when they have to be in and out, when they're putting them up, who they have putting them up, and that was definitely all in detail with the city. So we just you can borrow our lights and you have to have them back by this time.
I don't know if we've been able to do that, but do we have an inventory of what we have?
We do. Good. And that was one of the
That
things
was-
that we had asked for them
Yes.
this last time.
That's
And they're all organized. Great.
And I'll talk to Jack.
And we need to organize, the other thing we need to organize with this is when those Connex boxes are empty, that we have somebody going and
Clean.
clean them with
Oh my
Clorox,
God.
because they're
So what was your motion?
there was no motion.
Okay.
It was
Just discussion.
Oh, no action on it
So
then.
we can take action, because you were
Okay.
saying I would like to see if you want to make that a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we put an announcement in both newspapers and get it out to as many people as possible to present the board with proposals. And I guess we really need them by the next meeting, or our June meeting. Do you think that's too soon? Oh, wait, that's motion. I can't do that. Sorry.
Both papers.
Both papers and have proposals submitted to the EDC by the June regular meeting.
Who's second?
I
Who's
think
second?
For discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have a second for
I
discussion.
prefer July. I give a month, because I know like a lot of groups, I know like the Wranglers aren't meeting in person yet, or at least last I heard they're not meeting in person yet. They would probably be interested, or I can say for the Lions Club, because we discussed it. It turned out to be what we thought was too big of a chore just for us. We would probably want to pull in the Wranglers, maybe we would want to be able to talk to them, their board would have to meet. So like Lions Club had a meeting tonight. We, at the very earliest, we're gonna have a meeting for 2 more weeks. So, which we may have a meeting by then. So I would say July.
Fourth Thursday is July 23rd.
Okay. I amend my motion to July. Regular meeting, 23rd.
Who's second? Okay, any other discussions? Anything else you'd like me to make in there, other than just request for extensions? You're not gonna put any kind of, I guess, a cosmetic.
I was trying to be,
I know, it
yeah,
was quite,
cost
it was quite
conscious.
expensive doing that one. I was like, oh my God, so
Right.
I understand. Okay, no other discussions?
For more information, they can contact. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, calling for a vote. Those in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, discussion and possible action regarding the city of Bandera's request to assist the cost of $12,000 for the engineering firm LNV LLC to complete a street assessment for the city.
I'd like to make a motion to approve $12,000 for the engineering firm LNV for the city to do a street assessment.
Any second?
I'll second.
Oh.
Okay. Well, you made the motion.
Doesn't matter.
You get the floor first.
Oh,
If you
okay.
want it.
So, from my understanding from this scope of work, it looks like what, let's see. Looks like the EDC street assessment is 6.03 miles for 5,200, and then there's a city street assessment for 6,800, and that's where the 12,000 comes from. So my understanding is the EDC street assessment would be just city streets that have businesses on them.
So I don't know, I did send this out yesterday, about 3:30. I've gotten some information, so a little more information back from Jay and a conversation that he had with the mayor and the city attorney. And then I actually did, because because they were discussing specifically what the EDC can and cannot fund, and that we wanted in discussions on, there's always some sort of fine line between what we can and can't. So I did forward that to our attorney to get a legal opinion for this specific thing. And I gave y'all in an email exactly what he said. He said, in my opinion, the Bandera Economic Development may spend the $12,000 for the LNV services if the board of directors finds that doing so promotes new or expanded business development. I am pasting 3 sections of the Economic Development Act below. And then the 501.103 establishes that an authorized project includes expenditures on the streets, meaning authorized project, a city project. That 501.152 establishes that engineering services are an authorized cost associated with the project. And section 505.158 contains the same type of finding necessary under the first one listed as it applies to a city of less than 20,000. So in his opinion, okay, the reason, there's 2 things. Number one, the EDC, it has been stated that we cannot fund paving streets unless we find some sort of specific economic benefit, meaning it's a commercial street or something that would encourage businesses to move in or economic development on that street or something of that sort. For instance, changing the one way on Maple might have fallen into that, had the city not gotten a grant from the state for that to include in that infrastructure that they did. That might have been something that we could have done because it would have supported the hotel's parking, ability to park and move into and benefited it. So I'm just giving an example. So with that said, this is just the assessment of the $12,000. They have asked this engineering firm to help the city come up with a plan to identify the most used streets, which ones may fall under EDC benefit, which ones would not, which is the quote that you just read in. And they've asked for that to be divided up. So ultimately, if we decide to help fund the actual streets themselves, then this part will help us do that on how we can fund it. But the $12,000 is asking this engineering firm to help them make a plan and to assess what streets are most used, how often will they be paved, what's a plan to do, how much percentage do we do this year, next year, and then when we get to the 10 years, we start all over again. But some streets are going to have to be done more often because they're used more. And so it was an assessment of to help the city do that, because the city didn't have engineering per se. And so this is what that $12,000 did for our engineering firm to help us with that. And that kind of thing is what Monty said that we could do, because it is to support the ultimate economic development of our town. And it's ultimately a project to do that, is the way I interpreted what he said. And so for me, I believe there's a very distinct difference in what I've been experienced and what I've read. So, Darcy.
So I have a few things on this. One is I am going to run for city council, and I firmly believe that we need to fix our roads, and I'm going to push for that and follow through on it if I'm put on city council. However, if we're going to vote right now on this, my vote's going to be no. And the reason for that is we have just moved a ton of money over from different line items to come up with $100,000 to be able to give to these businesses. And we don't know if we're going to have a resurgence of COVID come back up, and we're going to have to help these businesses and pull money from other places. We've had the mayor and the city manager both sit right here in city council meetings and say that they have plenty of money. There's plenty of money in the city budget to be able to pay for this stuff themselves. So why come to EDC and ask us to pony up to $12,000 when they've got it, and they haven't yet been willing to put any money in towards the EDC? And we haven't needed it yet. I'm not saying, hey, why haven't we gotten any money yet? We haven't needed it. But to me, if the mayor and the city manager are sitting there saying, hey, we have plenty of money in the city, we've got plenty of money where we could give it if we needed to the EDC, then why can't you pay the $12,000 for this? And why are you asking the EDC to give money when we don't know if we've got it to give, when we're already going to have to turn people down for stuff this year that they're asking for? That is without a doubt, no ifs, ands, or buts, we are going to have to turn people down this year when they're asking us to help them with stuff. We're already having to tell people no that are requesting stuff because they get hot tax instead of sales tax. So, that's why I'm going to say no. And yeah, it's only $12,000, which is dropping in the bucket compared to $100,000, but the city says they can afford it. They can afford it.
Thank you. Yes.
I agree with Darcy. And this is merely an assessment, and that's all it is. So it's an opinion. And to shell out $12,000 of EDC on an assessment and not an actual project that has not been initiated.
Yes.
Well, the other thing we might look at is paying just the EDC portion that they divided out. That might be another option.
But that would be at another time.
So we have
We
a
can do
motion,
it right now.
we have a motion and a second on the table. The options are for you to amend it, just do what you said, or we can see how the motion goes, and if it doesn't pass, then we can make another motion. That's up to you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I still think, agree, Dorsey, we do not know what the future holds right now. And to take any of money that is unbudgeted at this point, I don't think it's very prudent.
That's our bookkeeper talking.
I agree on that one. This needs to be done. I agree that it needs to be done. I want it to be done. It should be done. The city can get
Any other discussion? Okay, calling for a vote. Those in favor? None in favor. Those opposed? All opposed. Entertaining any other motions on this agenda item?
I'll make a motion that we assist with the cost of $5,200 to the engineering firm, LBN, for the assessment of the city streets.
I'll second that one. Thank you, Lauren. Any discussions on this? Same opinion as the first. Okay, calling for a vote. Those in favor? Lauren Lynn in favor. Those opposed? Darcy, Lee, Andrea, and Tony opposed. Any other? Thank you. I don't think there's any other way to look at that one. So. All right. Thank you very much. Discuss and possible action on EDC account signers at Bandera Bank. We put this on here because Cindy Harrington was a signer on our account. We have 2 city employees, Jay and Jill, the secretary, are 2 signers from the city.
And the
And
mayor,
then, I'm sorry.
and the mayor.
That's Cindy consent you?
Mhm.
So, mayor.
I just checked on all this yesterday.
Oh, that's right, you do. So, and Suzanne is, I did. Suzanne, those are the 3 from the city, and then we typically have 2 from our board. It's.
I'm just ready to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that Lee Corral be our additional sign for the city.
I'll second that.
Is Lee okay with it? We'll let you speak in discussion.
Please go ahead. My thoughts are you're right here, easy access.
That really is key. That is key.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Any other discussion on that? All right, calling for a vote. Those in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Update, working group on the EDC stimulus grant application. So this is where, Lynn, you can do your questions if you would like. Because the update from above was just supposed to be an update. It wasn't really supposed to be discussion or actions or anything or from the working group itself. And you're part of the working group now. And so you're more than welcome to bring up your items here.
But there would be no way for us to take any action, but maybe on the next one, we could take some action on what's discussed on the update from the working group.
Would you like to switch the order?
I don't think that's necessary. I was just hoping that whatever's discussed in the update in the next agenda item, we could possibly make a motion, unless you think that that's the way it should be done.
So the ones, well, we can do an update and discuss anything you want regarding the applications. If the action that you want to make or the motion you want to make fall in A or B in one of those topics, then you may do that. If it doesn't, then you can wait until board comments and ask for it to be on a future agenda, and we can specify that at the next meeting in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 20 days, and we can put it on there. So.
Okay, so it's obvious I'm not going to be able to make a motion off of this agenda, off the agenda that I was sent today, I could have, because it's talking about property tax definition, but now I'm not. But the update that I would like to speak about is, first of all, I think it's wonderful that we're funding these businesses that had to close and partially close. And I think most of them, I'm going to say everybody is appreciative of the money that they're receiving from the EDC board. Everybody that I worked with were very appreciative and thank you, and thank you for helping us, and we really appreciate it. So I had really, really good feedback from everybody that I had contact with. So I think it's a good program. The thing that I want to speak about is the property tax, and that I know that Megan is on this agreement, on our performance agreement. Megan is checking off that she verified the property tax. I would like to see, and if I need to do this later, I would like to see a copy of the property tax from each business in the file, so that when anybody goes to that file 10 years from now, 3 years from now, and they open up that file, they see that each business met their requirements, that they have 12 months of sales tax, that they're current on their property tax related to the business, and that they have met by their utilities, mortgage, or rent. I just feel like that's a vital part of the program. It's what the city council is requiring for these businesses to be eligible, and I believe that it should be a hard copy documentation in the file. And everything else about this program, I have no complaints about whatsoever. I just think it's very important that we have a completed file, that when anybody goes, and I'm repeating myself, and I know I'm repeating myself, that when anybody goes to pick out that file, they open it up, they see that these businesses met the requirements and everything is there. But everything else about the program I think is good, except for that those that are not in the working group, and that includes me, and some of the applications are receiving very short notice that we can come and review the applications. We received notice Friday at 6 o'clock that we had Saturday and Sunday to come and receive and to review the applications, but that the checks had already been written and they're going to be dispersed. So if I have to wait to put this on the agenda for next time, I would like to see that the completed package, which would include the application and all supporting verification documentation, be brought before the board of directors at a meeting before any checks are funded, or for the board of directors to be part of the review process during a meeting. What I mean by that is for that whole package to be together. That we don't need to be a part, the directors don't need to be a part of putting the package together. The committee can do that, Megan can do that. But I just feel, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, that the board of directors at a meeting in person should have the opportunity to review each business package, so that if we have a question and we would like to discuss something, that we are able to discuss it as a board.
Do we want to stop and talk about those? Let's start with your first topic. Anybody have anything to say about the property tax and sales tax?
Do you have a copy, Megan, of the resolution?
I
have print.
And it does say the property tax and sales tax.
Yeah.
Would you like to see?
Says they have to be up to date on sales tax and property tax.
Current.
So, so let me just clarify, the city council does not require, I mean, we haven't really had any conversations with them about what is expected to be in the files.
Here it is,
This
right.
has come up, this has come up in the past of there's a certain expectation of when people go to a file and they look at a file and they expect to be able to tell from beginning to end what happened in that whole thing. Well, the file is supporting documents for the minutes. And I know that the stimulus grant is a little different than the individual grants, but this did come up in the past. The key things that the boards before you discussed, and Andrea was part of this discussion, and I believe we were all in agreement, is that we do not have office space. We do not have a full staff. We have a 4-drawer file cabinet, which is limited space, which we could barely find space for that here at City Hall as it is. So the files should be viewed as supporting information. And if you have a board that's appointed and that is a 7-member board that are doing checks and balances on each of us, we serve at the pleasure of the council. If anybody thinks anybody is doing anything underhanded, then that needs to happen. But we are, we took an oath and to do certain things in a certain way. And if I or you or Darcy or Lee or Andrea, if any of you tell me that you looked it up online and their payroll taxes are up to date, I would have no reason to question you. Now, I may go verify that, but if you were to sign that piece of paper that says, I looked at this and I verified that these payroll taxes were up to date, 10 years from now, that person that signed that is the one that needs to be.
But everybody signed it. You've got all this right here where it says verified.
Yep, and they have
These
the
are all the
opportunity to write,
signatures.
yes, and we all verified. I went online and I pulled property IDs and I looked at every single one of the ones I signed. And so.
And I did too. I went
Okay,
back
and
and checked.
that's awesome.
I have a
That's what
copy
you're-
of all of them.
And it
just
says on
including
there that it's been verified and you signed it and you dated it. And that's an official.
The only reason I signed the ones, I only verified the ones that, because I went and did my own homework on every one of the businesses that property tax was paid.
Which you can do that or not do that. I mean, and if you found one that wasn't, then you can bring it up to us
And
and
I
say,
certainly did find one that wasn't, and I brought it up, and a check was still written.
okay,
So,
we'll talk about that one in a minute, because that's not
totally
exactly what
separate
happened. That is not exactly what happened. So, so the files themselves you need to be very conscientious about what we're keeping in there as far as documentation for the long term. Because real estate, hard copy real estate is essential, and we haven't come up with a backup plan as far as how to we don't have servers. We have a space they created a space on the city website that we can do backups, but we don't have access to it. So all of that has not come into play as far as, I just think that a signature, if it says on there it was verified and a signature, and according to the attorney, that is enough to verify. So, Laura had her hand up.
I'd like to just,
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yes, Lee did
My
have hers
apologies,
first,
Laura.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I totally disagree with you, because in the event of an audit, someone's signature on a piece of paper is meaningless, totally meaningless. We can print off a 1-page document from the state of Texas website showing the reports that have been filed and the amounts that have been paid, 1 page. We can print off 1-page document from the CAD showing that the property taxes have been paid. That's 2 pieces of paper.
So first of all, in the state of comptroller, you can print your own out, but you cannot print that out.
And
we did ask-
every person who was applying for this
And we
money,
asked for that, and that is a part of it, and we are including everything that they submitted for qualification.
that goes in the file.
They didn't submit their property tax stuff, we verified that.
Well, then maybe that needs to.
And it gives, property ID as of 6/2.
That's public record, we can print that off.
It's public record, it'll be public record for 10 years from now.
It needs to go in the file, Tony.
In your opinion, Lee?
Well, it,
And
It's
in
just
my
for a
opinion
quick-
as well,
I know,
it needs to
and
be in
that's
the file.
exactly what it is, and we're about to take, and that's exactly
we
what it
can't
is.
vote on anything. You can't vote. We can take a consensus like we have in the past. We can take a consensus and work off that like we have in the past. We can't make a motion on this right now.
So
because
we-
it's
do
not-
we have an
it's
issue
not-
with that?
Let's take a consensus.
I'd also just like to bring up, in dealing with, I've had some of the merchants who were not the happy campers. And they are, a number of them have said, if their information is going to be out there for the public, they want to withdraw their application. They don't want anything to
That's
do with this.
fine. That's fine. They
And
can
I think
withdraw
we
their
need to,
application.
we need to be very careful of people's tax ID numbers, of their bank accounts, of their personal information.
Tax ID is public record. We can.
Right, but
And
but-
believe Laura,
all of
it's
this,
2 pages. You get the name of the
Lee,
business.
it's my turn
and
to
you
talk.
get
Would you please let me
where they
finish?
pay.
Would you please
Two
let me
pages.
finish?
Lee, come on, she's got the floor.
We have never required that on any of
Doesn't
our
matter.
Would you let me finish?
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, quit
Finish.
Do
interrupting
I
me
need to
then,
ask, do I
please.
need to get you removed? And
I'm not going to remove
Well,
myself,
then-
Tony.
You're not gonna
I'm
remove yourself,
sorry.
but I can have you removed.
That has to be a vote to remove me. You cannot remove me.
As the
Go
chair,
ahead, Laura.
as the chair, I can
Okay.
ask you to be removed.
We have to be very careful about their information. I've gone through and when people have sent checks, I've marked out. I've taken a black marker and marked a couple of them out. I'm very cognizant of, this is not something that I would want my information just sitting in a file somewhere. And as far as on all of our performance agreements, we've always honored our administrative assistant's work. And that's the way it's been. The checkup, this came straight from our performance agreements we modified. And that's how it's been done forever. You've never had a problem with that in the past,
This is the first time I've been on the EDC.
but you've been had access to all of our records. You've been involved.
And there's been plenty missing that I've asked about, so let's not go there. This is a public record that anybody can print out. Anybody can print out. Why would we not have it in their file? For it to be looked at, if a city council member comes in and wants to look at it, they see all the requirements have been met for the funding. I don't want to argue about that anymore. I really don't.
Okay,
I'd
I
like
don't
to-
either.
Okay, thank you. It's part of the Exhibit A on the resolution to have current property tax. This is the best way that we should be able to confirm that they are current on their property taxes. It's 2 pages. And I have already volunteered that I would print it and to no charge to the EDC.
It has to do with the fact that it's not necessary in the.
In my opinion, it is necessary. It's part of the resolution and Exhibit A.
That we verify that their taxes were paid.
They're current.
Yes, so why would anybody, when we check that box and we sign the paper that says, as of 6/22, we verified this information, period. Period.
I
mean,
don't
so-
agree with you. It needs to be in the file, Tony, and I don't know why you're arguing about it not being in the file. Why are you arguing? When
Why are you arguing
It
when
has to be in the
does?
file.
Andrew?
I think it needs to be in the file. If we need to take a consensus, I don't think it needs to be this back.
I agree. If
It's
it's,
okay.
if it's on the, if city council wants it as one of the criteria, it should be.
many things are on file, and, you know, every bank teller down at the bank has all of our information, and it's in a file. So I don't think it should be an issue. We take it, we tell them it will be confidential, it goes in the file, and we're done.
I come from a place where paper is
Obsolete.
needs to be obsolete. And the less we rely on it, the better off we are. I'm
You can
not
just
gonna
look on the
agree
website and get
with
it.
that. Well, it's verified. I mean,
Right.
it's verified. Darcy?
I agree with you. The first thing I did when I took over my office was shred for 2 months straight. I shredded paperwork. Everything was on the computer. If we have a filing system on a computer where these files are scanned in and all the paperwork scanned in, file by file, no problem. We don't have to have it in a paper file, but we don't have that. There needs to be something where city council can come in, or the mayor can go in and say, I want to look at X business and see if they meet all the criteria. And if they can do that on a computer, that's better. I prefer working on a computer than I do with the paper. I hate that I have this instead of having my iPad with me today. I'd much rather have it, but that's not the world this office works in right now. So until we get there, I think
Sounds like a
it needs to be
consensus.
there.
We will include it in the.
And I would like that consensus. I want to make sure that it is a consensus. Megan, you know that it's consensus
Laura,
that.
and Lynn, 2 people said no, 4 people said yes. That's a
Okay.
consensus.
I just
And
want to make sure it's clear.
I just said it will be
I would
included,
like it effective immediately.
period. It will be in all the files. When the files are filed, it will be in there.
On
Is
all
that
of the
clear?
applications.
Is that clear
On
enough?
all of the applications.
Yes, Lynn, why would,
I
when the
just want
files,
to be
when,
clear.
Why don't
when
you
the
volunteer to
files
do
are
it, so
filed,
do
they're
it.
not filed,
Okay.
they're sitting right there. When they're filed, it will be included. Okay?
When the check's written, it'll be in the file.
That wasn't what you
Before-
said. That
Okay,
isn't
well then
what you
let me speak about this again then. Before a check is written, that property tax copy of
Okay,
the,
now you're changing everything.
no,
So-
and this is a consensus.
I'm not saying
But
that
that is reason why I have to be so specific, because
this
you
point-
take it out of context.
from this point forward,
Before a check is
from
written,
this point forward, before a check is written and we have you review the file, it will be included in the file.
it has to be in the
and
file
actually,
before
it's
a
not
check
even
is
before.
written.
It's not even, I'm not even gonna agree with before the check's written. When you review the file, it will be included in there. And then we can address the check part in a minute. So when
I would like to know what the rest of the consensus of the board is, please.
they already, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that wants it in there and 2 that doesn't see any reason
Before
for
the
it.
check.
And so 4 to 2.
That is not what you
Nobody
said,
said when,
Lynn.
it needs to be in the file
It's in the file.
For
That's
review.
what they voted.
for review.
No, we did not vote. It was a consensus.
It's a
It was
consensus
not a
vote.
vote.
Excuse me.
It wasn't a motion vote, it was a consensus vote. So, okay, we're moving on to the next thing. So to address the issue about the review of the checks. So specifically on Friday, and yes, it was late because Laura and I did not intend to work the entire day on these, and we ended up working from about 11 until 6 o'clock to get these out to send. And I knew that I'm guilty of this too, that I do not always read my emails late on Fridays or even in the evenings. So I sent a text message out to everybody and said, hey, this is what we've done. Check your email. I didn't hear anything until almost midnight on Sunday. Had anybody said, I can't review them this weekend, I need until Monday close of business, or I need, had anybody said any of that? Anything, any given me anything to say when you could review them, then we would have held off. But I spoke with the mayor, and the mayor said, you got no response. And I've been keeping her in the loop, and she said, you set up a working group. Monty confirmed this in the email that you asked him about, that the working group was given a task to do this, and that the review was going to be sent out via email, give the board a chance to review and for them to provide feedback. I don't expect you to drop everything. We all have stuff to do. I said that we were wanting to pay it because the June 1st, and I can read you the exact.
Yeah, and you said the checks were ready to disperse. You
Yes.
sent out an email at
Yes,
6
they
o'clock on
And the
Friday,
reason,
and Monday the checks were
and
gonna
let
be
me tell you the
dispersed.
reason.
They gave us Saturday and Sunday.
Chill.
I don't,
I mean,
chill.
I'm sorry, Lynn, listen, the reason for that is because it takes a lot of time to coordinate the signatures on the checks as well as the performance agreements. And so if anybody had a problem with the check, it could have been voided and reissued.
That's why it needs to come to the
Megan was
board
going to
in
be out of
person
town.
to review, so that we would not have.
We already talked
a
about this and
text.
we already agreed on the other process.
No,
which is
that
why
was a
we've done-
consensus, that was a consensus, and that can be changed.
I'm not saying it
That can
can't.
be changed
I'm not
at
saying-
any time.
I'm not saying it can't. I'm saying that that's the reason it was done the way it
I
was
don't
done.
accept your excuse, and
not
Saturday
an
and Sunday,
excuse.
Saturday and Sunday, we have our own lives.
Well, you think we don't have our own lives that are working on it? You think we haven't given up
Okay, I mean,
our time?
Andrea has a question. What's
Well,
closed?
The city offices are.
Yeah,
closed.
we kept them, I said, coordinate with Laura and I. We made sure every moment of this weekend that those applications would have been accessible. She had to go to Kerrville on Saturday. I had to go to Kerrville on Sunday. And we made sure that we had those applications at any point if anybody wanted to review them. And we received no communication back via text or via email until midnight on Sunday, almost midnight on
So
Saturday.
not hearing a response means it's okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Lee, please help.
I have to disagree with that. I was out of town this weekend. I had major plans that I had already planned on, and to get something on a Friday night after 6 o'clock, I'm not gonna respond, no. I'm on my time at that point. And I don't think it should be asked of any board member to work on this over the weekend. I don't. I think it should be on a volunteer basis, but I don't think it should be
It is a
something.
volunteer basis.
I don't think it's something that should be told for us to do over a weekend.
And so I said, please find the updated spreadsheet attached is filtered to show the 8 applicants ready for review and payment. Because Monday is the 1st, we are really trying to get these ready and to the applicants.
What was the rush?
And again, no check, you didn't know whether or not, and it said nothing about the checks. And it says, please, I said, please contact Laura and or me to look at the applications and supporting documents this weekend. It was not until 10:59 on Sunday that Lee replied, I've been in Houston all weekend. I appreciate that. We should wait on issuing checks just yet. No, when you could look at them, no for how long, no, I mean, there was no end date.
Exactly what I'm
And so
saying.
I forwarded that.
Exactly what I'm saying.
I forwarded
You
it.
did get a response.
I just
To
said I got
stop,
a
to
response.
hold up the check.
I said I got a
She
response.
put her hand up and I had my hand up.
Okay, I said I got a response. I already said that Lee was the only one that replied on Sunday night. Andrea.
I just feel like it's rushed. It's not enough time to thoroughly review the number of applications that were.
And I would agree.
And I appreciate you making it available. I mean, I get that, but I think just, as we've been, receiving these applications, I just have questions and I'd like to discuss it openly among everyone instead of, emailing you and one other person. That's just the way I feel.
So I understand, and I can see where you and Lee, since y'all were not involved in any of the working group part, where you're probably not really understanding what all we've done and haven't done. And I appreciate that would probably take more time for y'all to review it because, y'all haven't really been a part of any single one of them. Darcy, go ahead. Did you say you had your hand up?
I want to say that I've seen the 4 people sitting at this table spend hours and hours and hours.
Me included.
Right.
4
we're one
people
of the 4
sitting at
people
this table.
We have spent hours and hours and hours working on it, and I'm not saying anything negative towards y'all at all. Please don't take it that way. We have all spent hours and hours and hours. We're available and able to do that. This is a volunteer basis for all of us. It's a volunteer basis for us to be here right now. This has not entirely been an easy thing. And since I've gone back to work and not working from home, I've had to kind of dip out, especially this last week even more. But being able to review stuff, I've been able to review everything, every single piece of paper, every email that I've wanted to review, everything. Any questions, I've been able to contact either one of them. I've talked to Lynn on a couple. I've even talked to Jill about some because she signed a couple of checks and I was like, oh, I kind of have questions. What were your thoughts? Also, because I respect her opinion, because I am new to the board. So, you know, I think that yes, it may seem rushed in a way. If I was sitting on the outside or even just somebody sitting on the other side of this computer watching this meeting, or if we had it in person, it would seem rushed also. But I do know two specific businesses that I was working with that were not going to be able to pay their rent this month. They were not going to be able to pay their rent. They didn't make it in round 1A or whatever we want to call it, the first round of checks. We're waiting on their electricity bill or the water bill. We're waiting on the water bill, and then come to find out they didn't pay water. So that was something that they didn't provide it to us, but not to no fault of their own. They just didn't pay water and trash because it was rolled up in their rent. Well, we didn't know that, but we didn't want them to be shorted money. But I was told, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent this month for my business. So that's why we had everything else. That's why, you know, you want to hurry and try to get these businesses their stuff. And they had it. They had everything.
Thank you.
Yes, and speaking to, I had two people, when I took them their check on Monday, actually break down in tears and say, there is no way I could have paid my rent today without this. We may see, not, you know, they're seeing the urgency, these merchants are, they're hurting. And there were only 8 applications to review.
Are those ones that were closed completely?
Who actually worked on it.
So, although we reviewed the applications, again, had there been any response at all and said, can we wait and give them a date? There would have been a little more. But we've been at this for 2 months, and we've been, it's a lot to do. And if we didn't just push through, then we would still be dragging our feet and not doing it. And I think our town's too small to be bombarded by the governmental bureaucracy that we have put into this.
There's a process and procedure that has to be followed and requirements that need to be met.
All of which happen. Everybody.
Not every bit of it, but I won't bring that up right now.
Okay, so
I think
So
I think that I would like to take a consensus from the board.
okay, we don't
If
have
we
very
can do
many.
that right now,
So we don't
that
have.
all applications,
I
all
haven't given you the floor,
completed
Lynn. I have not given you the floor. So we do not have very many applications at this point. What is I would like to, I'll call on each of you, what is a reasonable amount of time for you to review, to ask for you to give feedback on applications, or at least to get a response, expect a response on when you can provide a feedback. Leah, I'll let you first.
What, from the initial time we reviewed the application?
Yes, ma'am. If you receive an email, how much time would you like to be able to respond to? A week, 7 days. Andrea?
A week is good, but I feel like before final approval, it needs to. So if there's any, the applications can go out, they can be reviewed, and if there's questions or whatever, okay, but final approval is actually at meeting. If we have to have a special meeting, I'm not opposed to meeting weekly.
I think I understood that question correctly. I agree with Andrea. I think it needs.
You didn't misunderstand the question. She just took it a step further. Yeah, because we'd already discussed, and when Monty had stated what he said, everybody was in agreement that we weren't going to bring it back to the board. So we changed our mind, and that was not the meeting you were at. You weren't here. You weren't here when Monty was on our attorney was on the panel. And have you been able to watch that on YouTube? You've not. Okay. Okay, Laura.
One day.
Lynn.
I would like to have the completed package come before a
That wasn't
board
the
at
question.
a
That
If
meeting.
wasn't
you
the
receive,
question.
if you receive an email, how many days would you think is reasonable for you to review an email of applications?
I think a week is good, but I would also like for it to come to the board for final approval before a check is written. For final approval before a check is written.
100%.
I'm sorry, I repeat myself a lot, I forget.
Okay. So, Darcy,
3 days.
3 days. Okay. So, I'm going to rephrase the question. If you were involved in the process and you were getting information as we got it, would your opinion change on the review? Like if you got an email with every single application that said, we're in detail of exactly what all we got to prove whatever, and then, additional information, because you're getting the scanned applications in the beginning. We did the first ones, I don't think we did that in the rest of them. Maybe we did. I mean, I was in the hospital then, so I don't know really what happened at that point. But if you were to get the original application and then you were to get just forwarded emails of the other information that we're getting to support it, would that reduce your review time at any?
No.
Absolutely.
I think 7 days is unreasonable. Okay, so 7 days, or 1 day. Okay, we're going to take a consensus vote. 7 days for the 3. And I'm going to choose 3 days. I think 1 day is awesome, but 3 days is a lot easier. So I'm going to go with the next one. Those in favor of 3 days. So I got 3 and 3.
Tie. So what's your decision?
So we don't have a consensus.
Right.
So would everybody, is it okay to average it? Can we do somewhere in the middle? Put it closer to y'all, 5 days, 4 days? I mean, if they're weekdays and not weekends? I mean, is there any give on the 7?
I can work with 5 days if everything is emailed to me to be able to review, which would include the property tax, which would include the sales tax, and all supporting documentation. And if I have a question, if there is a question on any of the applications, it comes to the board for discussion at a meeting. For a board to discuss at a meeting. If there's any question on any of the applications of why they're receiving that money, if there's any question, that it comes before the board for discussion and review at a meeting in person.
Again, heard you. I will, please bring that up in the board comments, and I will add that on the next agenda item for us to actually discuss.
But we've been discussing it all night.
It's not, but we're not coming up with, I mean, we're gonna have a tie. It's like we have a tie. So I was just
I
getting, I
agree
was
to
just
the
getting a
5
feel.
days. I agree to the 5 days that you could
But you
review
put a
that
lot
if
of
everything is
stipulations
in place and there's no questions, then that's
I mean, okay, so what you did was you shortened it to 5 days, but you added 2 more days on us to put it all together and scan it and do everything else.
well,
Instead
what
of
were you gonna do?
come to us and review the
Oh,
paper
have
file.
have
Have
it
it here,
available? You
have
didn't
it
say
here.
that. You didn't say that you would have it available here.
So
The
what-
last conversation was we were just call you and you know meet
available,
with you.
available for review.
Okay, so it's
Available
available
for
for
review.
review at City Hall.
No,
Oh.
available for review, period. And
Where?
I asked
Okay.
if weekdays or weekends mattered, and that, because City Hall's not open on the weekdays, weekends, so we
So
made it
Did
available.
you say you would scan everything to
I
us
didn't,
for
I didn't agree to
review?
anything, this is just a discussion right now. Andrew, please,
Oh, I
you have the floor.
Okay. I'm good with the 5 days. Obviously it's available for review. And if there's any questions, if anyone says, I would like to discuss this in a meeting, that would be an option for that particular application. So we're not holding up all of them. So we could review what's there, and if there's no response, like you said, or, no questions, no red flags, great. Fun.
So basically, we've been doing that to some degree. There were some conversations that were taken outside the group that was actually working on it. And so we got more information on some of it than we had in the beginning. And based on conversations with the city secretary and the mayor, both of them were in agreement with the working group. And so we went ahead with it. We'll talk about that one in a minute. I think you brought that up.
Yeah, I think my only issue was sometimes with supporting documentation, and then other concerns were whether it was essential or non-essential based on the document that we were given. And I know there's differing opinions.
That's
where I
that's
feel
why
like
we're
there needs to
using
be
the
a discussion.
DHS, and we also referred to the code enforcement. He was involved in some of them, going and telling them that they were essential or non-essential in their town. So we used what Jill had told us as far as that conversation goes. There weren't too many that were really in question. I did receive a couple of emails regarding some Facebook posts for the general store that we don't look at general store. We don't look at Facebook for any other applications. We weren't going to look at it for that one. So we did not take that into consideration, whether or not they were essential or non-essential based on a Facebook post. That was just going to increase our.
Were we using the Homeland Security, that document that we
Yeah.
sent?
There's a link.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one that Joanne used. And they determined.
That's what I was using when I was asking the questions on whether or not.
So I can say, can I speak? I can say that the issue that you had with the general store, when I printed out their property tax statement, they're listed as a gift shop. And so I believe that the gift shops were considered non-essential. And so that was why they got funded the amount that they, in my opinion. I know that they found a way to stay open by selling essentials.
Yeah, and I mean, not that that had anything to do with it, but you're right, they did. They used their sources of supplies to get to sell.
But their legal description on their property tax for their business is gift shop.
Yeah, but some businesses have several services that they offer. Some are essential, some are not. Are those all going to be listed on there? No. And is that what they've got? I mean, if we're using a Homeland Security document, are they saying to go by that? I don't know. I'm asking for clarification. That's all. I was going based on the document that we were told. This is how you determine whether or not a business is essential or non-essential based on the services that they provide, regardless of what's on their tax form or regardless of their NAICS designation or whatever. That was not part of that document. So that's all. And that was my. Well, they serve food, so it was considered essential based on that Homeland Security document. Which it was my understanding that restaurants were not essential, but when I read that, that's what it said.
So restaurants were essential, but they had to change their business model. They could do carry out.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So
But you know,
So
General store sells ice cream. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
They sell
and
food.
I'm not making the rules.
No.
I'm just reading the document, and if we're gonna base it on it needs to be consistent and across the board. You know,
They do
you
sell
can't-
ice cream.
so
Right.
the majority, so you would, okay, so
I know
I
it's
don't
silly.
know.
It's silly. I get it, and
no, but they were told by doing them, they were non-essential. And I don't know if it has to do with the percentage of what they sell, because the ice cream may be a small portion. I don't know. But we went based on what they said, and we did look some up on DHS where they were not involved.
Well, and I feel like it was so, people were just misinformed. Because I was under the impression restaurants were non-essential. And so I would imagine, as you know, they're being told this.
They were told they were
They were going off of that document that we were going, that we
They
were
were
operating.
they're essential, but they could only do carry out. They could not do dine in. So they had to change their business model. Some of them chose not to change their business model and close.
Correct.
And so no matter what, they were still deemed
Essential.
It doesn't matter, yeah, if they decide to close or not,
Right.
on your
They
business
were
model,
still
you're
deemed
either
essential because they could
essential
still
or
do
you're not.
business.
Right.
But even if it was under a different.
So those were just my concerns, because I just, you know, I just wanted to be consistent. And if we were gonna use that document to make our determination, then we would do it that way.
Darcy?
Well, and two, I'm always thinking about the legal side of stuff. Lawsuits are gonna go out. Everybody keeps talking about cities, counties, everybody's gonna get sued, right? So what we have to go by, in my estimation also, is how the application was filled out. What did he deem himself? No,
And then we verified that.
and then we have to verify it. He deemed himself as non-essential and said that he closed. I know there are differing opinions in this room. I, for one, don't know. I didn't go by there. I kept my happy self in my house. So I don't know. However, he deemed himself non-essential. He said that he closed at such and such a date. You look it up, he's deemed non-essential. To me, that's it. Then if you decide, if we were to decide on our own that he is essential, then we open ourselves up for a lawsuit.
Well, we're not deciding, we're doing it based on, I mean, just because he thinks he's not, doesn't mean he's not.
Right.
Well, and that's
So-
And that's
what
what, that's what I
That's
meant by
exactly right.
people were misinformed.
Exactly, I think there's a lot of, you know.
Just believe everything you read on Facebook.
So that's all my point. If we're gonna, you
And
know,
we did use
make-
that site, and there was a place where you could enter, you know, and they would come back with a ruling, which we didn't have to do. We can still do that if you want, with every one of them. But
I mean, some of them it's too late for, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, lawsuits, you know, and I don't care what they put on the application. This is small town. We know what businesses are selling and what services they're providing. It's very simple. And if it's unclear, that's where we have the discussion. That's where we call the business and talk to the business owner. I think most of the applications were very clear, but some of them weren't.
I think
I
we
would
have
have
to
liked
look
to
at the
have that
whole picture.
opportunity to discuss it. Because I think we all have different input. I don't visit every business in town, so there's things I don't know, but I know things about other businesses.
okay,
So
so
anyway, that's.
so all valid points. I just so let's move on to the next one. So Lynn, the reason I took that off was because Jill had called me and said, so when we were verifying property tax, I would go in and I would look for the building owner, the property owner, and who owned it, and make sure the property itself was up to date. And then I would look to see if there was any other accounts for the business themselves, and make sure those were up to date if they existed. So I had started doing that, and then I was out for several weeks. And then when I came back and was trying to help resume everything, there was a question regarding tab gear. And it was explained to me that I thought that they had not paid their real, I mean, their personal tax,
Personal business.
personal business tax, that they were delinquent.
They weren't delinquent, they haven't been
I'm
paid.
talking about what I thought at the time. Please don't interrupt
But
me.
they weren't delinquent.
Please do not interrupt me. That's not what I said.
That is what you said.
No, I
But they were
said,
delinquent.
Lynn, come on.
Okay.
So when I came back into it, I thought that it was explained that Tab Gear was delinquent in their personal tax. I personally had an experience with our local CAD where if the property tax did not total over a certain amount, they didn't mail you a bill. And so when I first had an experience with this, when I was looking it up by my name, I was like, what's this other account? And so I went in and realized that I was delinquent. So I was thinking that it was something that maybe they just didn't get a bill, because every conversation that Darcy had said she had with her, with the business owner, was that they knew nothing about it, that they would pay it, let them know what it is, they would pay it.
No,
And
that's not
no,
correct,
ma'am, I'm
because
not
I
mad.
spoke with her personally
I know.
myself, so.
I'm telling you what I knew at the time. So when I put this on the, then there was a question on whether or not the resolution was property tax. If this little real account was included in our real property versus personal property was included in the property tax that needed to be up to date. And we had been verifying that for all of them where they existed. So when I had this on the agenda, it was brought to my attention that they had no account, that there was no personal property account that they were delinquent on. And so therefore, they were up to date on their taxes, according to the tax assessor and the CAD. And so I removed it from the agenda. It was the mayor's opinion. It was the working group's opinion, as was our attorney's opinion, that if the CAD was not expecting a payment from these people, then we shouldn't be expecting them to have it either. That they weren't, the CAD and the tax assessor was not deeming them delinquent. The business owner believed that they were paid in full in all their taxes.
No,
So-
that is not true. That is
Yes.
not true, Laura.
I've talked with
That
her
is
too.
not true. I spoke to April myself. They knew they had not paid their property tax because they had no idea they were supposed to pay business property taxes. And when I
That's what I just
advised
said.
her,
It's just what she
as a
said.
business, as a responsible business, you have to be paying business personal property tax. Everybody does. Everybody does.
Not
And
every county has that land.
Bandera County does, and so does Kirk County, because I pay in both. And so she told me, I will be contacting the tax assessor and the CAD, and I will be filing do what I need to do to meet the requirements. And I said, as soon as you do, I'm sure we'll be able to issue a check, but you're probably not going to get one until property tax is verified. It's business personal property tax. And she was willing to do that. And now I hear you sent her a check, and she is not current on her business property tax because she hasn't been paying. But that doesn't mean it's right. Every business knows to do that. I
You just got through saying that
with
she
the-
didn't know about it, so how can every business make that statement?
Well, because first of all, they're supposed to file with the courthouse their business name, if they're doing business as, and then after that, they're supposed to contact the CAD and let them know they're opening a business. And that is how that's generated. But you issued a check.
So, yeah, that address pops up as doing business as town here. So I don't have any explanation as to why the CAD did or didn't do it, or the tax assessor, but we aren't the CAD and we aren't the tax assessor.
But she's not current on property tax, so
not
she should
delinquent.
not.
She's
It
not
doesn't say
delinquent.
delinquent. It says current on property tax related to the business. It doesn't
It does
say
not
if
say
they're
related.
delinquent. It says current on property tax related to the business.
So according to the CAD and according to the tax assessor, she was current on every property tax dealing with that business and that address, and we paid the check.
Colby owns that building. So yes, he was current on his property tax because I did check that. That business was not current on their personal business property tax because they had not filed. So they were not current. Yes, delinquent doesn't show up either. They weren't current. And that is what is on the exhibit for the resolution. Current personal property
It
tax.
does not say current personal property tax on the resolution.
It does, right?
Sales and property tax related to the business.
Property tax related to the
Property
business.
tax. That's property
Business
tax.
property tax related to the business. Property tax related to the business. There's real and personal. If you own the building, that's real estate. Real estate.
Oh, really?
I'm not
And
disagreeing with
personal
you.
business property tax is what you file, what CAD sends out you, and you pay the tax assessor, and that's where the city receives revenue from, which was why it was included in this resolution. The city receives revenue from the business personal property tax.
They also receive revenue from the property itself, which was current and Kobe Miller owns.
That was not my argument. I didn't, that was not related to April Burke, who filed the application for her business. Colby owns the property, yes, but he doesn't have to be current.
So I think it's interesting earlier when we were talking about something and you said, should we be talking about this specifically, the specific businesses, and now it's just.
Well, it's because you wrote a check and they didn't meet the requirements. That's why.
So it was the opinion of everyone else that they did meet the requirement.
It was the opinion of you and
came
Megan
in later.
and Lauren.
No, I
It was
can't-
you three's
Lauren,
She wasn't
opinion.
even,
You, in your email you sent me, you said you spoke to Lauren and Laura and Megan, and you accepted their consensus that a check be written. That's what I've got that in an email, that you spoke to Megan Lamb and you spoke to Laura and you agreed,
at the
and
end-
I'll read it to you because I
You
have
don't
it
to read
here.
I'm
I'll
agreeing
have
that
it
that's exactly what I said.
Okay, so
And
that's why I'm upset that you wrote that check, you allowed that check to go out, and they were not current on their business property tax.
Andrea,
That's not
Which is why
acceptable.
we need a copy in the file and not someone just verifying.
That's right.
Because mistakes can be made, and I'm not,
Blaming
it just
anybody.
happens when one person verifies something. There's oversight, I mean, it happens. It needs to be a hard copy.
So,
We can all
so
see.
I understand what you're saying, but that's not the problem here. The problem here is that they don't have a personal account. They were current on all taxes regarding that building and the.
Colby was current on the property tax,
That's
on
my
the
point.
real estate.
There was no document.
Yeah, because they
There was
didn't
no
file.
document, so it should have never been approved.
That's right.
it doesn't pop up.
No, it does not.
No. She said they're not delinquent, but they're not, that's because they haven't even filed. They're not even active. They're not even.
And April
In there.
said she was taking care of that. And I have that in all of the emails to Megan and the updates.
So the other thing is that this actually fell on Darcy's list, right? Wasn't this you?
It was mine initially, but,
And I had the email asking if I would take that.
It was just that. Okay,
And so I did. And I know April very well.
so, I do believe that it's, it was still under, I mean, she voiced that she did still want to file, right? I mean, if she wanted to make it right.
she did.
um,
Yeah,
She
she
has
did
every
say she,
intention of making it right.
but it's not there yet. It's not there yet, and a check was written. And all of the other applicants have filed their business property tax
Lynn,
and their sales
We
tax.
understand.
We
it.
need
We
to be
understand.
fair
With the
to
first
all of the
3 times.
businesses.
Point of order.
Fair to all of the businesses.
You no longer have the floor. You've already said it.
As long as you understand. You have to be fair and transparent on this board of directors.
Yes, ma'am. I do understand that. 100%.
Okay, doesn't sound like it. You issued a check to somebody that didn't meet the requirements.
Please sign the page you didn't sign and return it.
And I will not accept that.
Please sign. There's
You
a-
already signed.
Laura, I've already
Okay.
signed it.
Okay, then thank you. I didn't know.
All right,
You
so.
told me to shut up.
That's-
when
then
I
you
I
asked
did
you.
not tell you to shut up. I absolutely
Okay.
did not say that to you.
Point of order. That's it.
Well, did you hear what she said?
I did not. I'm trying to.
She
figure-
said I told her to shut up.
Okay.
Professional, let's be
Please.
So, okay, so any other updates from the working group, Darcy? Any other issues you want to, just an update from the working group regarding stimulus plan? Or we're gonna move on to the next slide.
Jesus, let's move on.
Okay. discussion of possible action number 10 regarding the EDC stimulus grant qualifications. So there were two issues. Okay, we've got two issues that came up. That one of them, we've got one business owner, 3 separate locations. All of her locations qualify under the non-essentials. We paid the first one knowing that she was, she qualifies for all of them. All of her businesses qualify. But the thing is that it was almost 10% of our budget that would have gone to one business owner. And it was a first come, first served basis. All 3 businesses qualify, and she is maintaining 3 separate physical locations, 3 separate physical business names. She is collecting tax and has separate books on all of them and submitting them. I think 2 of them share a tax ID, right? 2 businesses share one tax ID, but I had a long conversation with the comptroller, and you can do that, just depending on how it's filed or whatever. Thank you Lee, for that explanation. So anyway, so what I wanted to do was give the board an opportunity to approve the other 2 to be paid, or did you want to continue to hold them until we give other people the opportunity? And that's sort of the discussion that I brought it up, because what we want to know, and are the applications by physical location or tax ID? Because in her case, if it's by tax ID, we would pay 2. Or to me, she's maintaining 3 separate locations, and if the comptroller allows you to do 3 totally
And
separate.
they were all closed.
Yeah, they were all non-essential. And that's a lot of overhead, and she's maintaining 3 businesses in our town. So I know which way I lean, but it was, so it's American Indian Jewelry back in the South. Well, we've already done it. We've already done it.
Yeah, we need.
It's still generic enough to know that you're maintaining 3 full businesses, 3 sets of employees, 3 sets of books, 3 locations, 3 rents, 3 utilities. There is no doubt that she's got a big overhead and a burden. And first come, first served was our motto. She submitted 3 separate applications for the 3 businesses with separate supporting documentation. And if they hadn't all been rolled up to one owner, we would have treated them all as of that same day. So, Lynn, go ahead.
Just for the sake of transparency and discussing it with all of the board, what did the comptroller say about businesses sharing a tax ID? What did they say?
It's absolutely 100% allowed.
As long as they're.
Because I think as long as within that tax ID, they have they're specifying the
Separate
location.
businesses and paying separate sales tax.
They don't even have to do that. They
have multiple locations.
They have multiple locations, but it all rolls up to one tax, and they submit one full. So for instance, if I'm a market person, I could go sell in Wimberley, which only has county tax and no city tax if I'm doing it market days outside city limits. And then I could come here to a city limits, and all of it's in one tax ID. So I decide how much I collected for Wimberley, how much I collected for Bandera, add it all up. I submit one tax, and it all rolls up to the same tax ID. Same thing with businesses if you've got them in different locations.
I worked with these 3, and she is paying separate sales tax for each business.
Oh yeah.
But just sharing a tax ID for 2 of the business, but each one is separate. Sales tax.
Yeah, because you collect sales tax on the goods
On
that you
each,
sell,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't matter
Yes, so-
what business. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve paying these 3 businesses.
Oh, we've already
We've
paid.
We've already paid one, so they're
I
all.
know, but to pay the other 2.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Any second? Darcy? Any discussion? Go ahead.
I know that she's current on all of her personal business property taxes,
Thank
and
you, Lynn.
she's current on all of her sales tax because I've got all that printed out. So
They all
she's
qualify.
current. She's qualifies. What can you please tell us the amount that she qualifies for? Because I thought her sales tax didn't meet the. Is that correct, Megan? Okay, so can you tell us the amount of the checks then that they're going to be receiving?
Yeah, I got,
For each business?
Nobody still have to vote.
I don't think it's relevant. I think we need to make,
Right.
I think we need to make a motion, not relevant,
Which I
that,
just did.
so that it would be prevalent with precedent. So if we
Right,
have in the
right,
future, if we in the future have another business that comes to us and has the same thing, it doesn't matter how much we're paying. If they qualify, they qualify. And if
I
we're
just
gonna
know
do
that one of them didn't really qualify for the
well, if they don't
2,500,
qualify,
that's
we're
why.
not paying. I mean,
Right.
If they don't qualify, we don't pay.
Alright.
To me, that's not a part of the
It's
thing.
the same qualification.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're making a motion for future. So, okay.
Call for vote.
Call for vote. All in favor? All in favor? None opposed. All right, thank you very much. Okay, the other one is multiple applications by physical location and or tax ID. This is different in that we just voted, this is kind of dependent on the first one. So we've just voted that it's based on physical location, okay? So if we're going to allow the physical location, what if I have multiple tax IDs in a single location? Meaning they only have one overhead, but two businesses. Or they only, you know what I'm saying? They've got two businesses running out of a single location. They're running totally separate books. They're running totally separate, and if they both qualify, if they both collect sales tax and all of the other things are all in line and boxes are checked, they don't have the same overhead that we talked about a minute ago, right? Because they're not maintaining three locations and three. So if this is the case, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So now we're asking basically if there are multiple businesses within a single location, how are we?
So are you talking about maybe a clothing store and then
I'm talking about, so
in
basically,
the same building,
talking about on a single property.
property, not
On a
inside,
single-
not necessarily
On a
inside the
single,
building?
right, on a single property, which has basically all the same overhead. There's three separate businesses. There's an ice company, there's a Medina River company, and there's an amusement company. And so they all, the one property has one overhead, right? So it would be one rent, one mortgage, and one employee, so it's not the same as the other one where she's maintaining three separate total overheads.
And to complicate it even more, one of them was essential and the other two were not.
But we're not, once we decide how we're paying it, then we can pay what we're.
Oh, I just want to be angry like everybody else.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously you could submit, a mortgage or rent and utilities more than once. So it would have to be
But you
based on
can,
sales.
but we won't accept it. So that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. I mean,
That's
it
why
would have to be
this
based
was
on
brought.
sales tax.
I mean, one for each business.
Mhm.
That would definitely.
Is he reporting sales tax separately?
I think he.
I think it's
We
one
didn't
tax
get it.
Let me look it up. I actually.
We didn't get it.
Two different tax IDs.
Two sales tax numbers? Two different. And were they both essential or non-essential?
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
One was essential, two were not.
So,
And we didn't get all this stuff.
so two of the businesses have two sales tax permits under one single tax ID. And this is not gonna sound gibberish to you, but when he was telling me this in the comptroller, it was sounding gibberish. Because I was trying to go permits, tax ID, I was trying to keep all my, okay, so two of the businesses has two separate sales tax permits under one single tax ID. And then, the other one is,
Separate. It has
hold
its
on,
own
he's a
tax
sole
ID.
proprietor,
Mhm.
he's a sole proprietor. With the tax ID where he has that location and another one in town, but he's not, that
The
one's
other
no
one in
longer
town is-
existent, it's
is
not
no
active
longer
anymore,
exists.
even though it's still falling under the same tax ID. So
what was your question?
So the question at hand that we need to decide is, multiple, we already did physical locations. So multiple applications,
Or one
within a
physical,
single physical location. Multiple businesses within a single physical location.
So we need a motion to.
That could even be something similar to like Cedar Street or Cedar.
Street Market.
Yeah. If all the businesses in there were owned by one person, they're all different.
So
Don't we need
I
a
like
motion?
where, I
Don't
like
we
where-
need a motion on the table before we start discussion?
so what Lee and Andrea were talking about was exactly what was going through my mind. Based on location, we can only accept mortgage and utilities or rent and utilities for a single location that on a single application that we pay. So once we pay that location, then that no longer qualifies for the other businesses that may fall in that building, that if they collect sales tax on those other ones, that maybe we only give them sales tax for those. So he could pick which one he wants to go with, and then
It is complicated.
It's
it's
very
very
complicated.
complicated.
That's why it's before you.
And so
Yeah,
this is the
it's
reason it's before you, because it did not fit in the box.
Yeah, because three businesses are benefiting from rental or mortgage reimbursement. So there's that too.
And he's the owner too.
And he's owner of all three,
Uh-huh.
and
That's tough.
you know, the total here is we're looking at 2,500 plus and $4,500. So I would say, and I'm, y'all's take on it, but for me, if his total was $4,500 for three businesses, we max him out at 2,500 to encompass all three because it is one location.
So, and I hear what you're saying. I'm just gonna challenge that with what, and I don't necessarily think this is the case, but I'm thinking more along the lines of if this comes up later. You know, like if we have the same situation later. If we get a business that their three businesses in this one location independently, maybe have several employees within each business and they actually generate a lot of sales tax for all of them, and that they would qualify for the max amount on the sales tax part, as opposed to rent and mortgage.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think that needs to be addressed. I think it needs to, out of all three of his businesses combined, how much city sales tax does he collect?
Right, and I think in his case, it's probably not the scenario that I just gave, but if we're gonna make a motion to carry this, I mean, we're making a motion for this to be set for future. And that's why I worded it like this, was basically multiple applications by a physical location and or a tax ID. So are we calling it multiple applications within a physical location? Are we giving one, or are we giving it by the tax ID, or are we doing something else? Marcy?
I think we do have to take into consideration what we just did in the last motion, and that I understand that they're three standalone businesses, whether or not they fall under one tax ID or two different tax IDs or three tax IDs with one owner, you do have to consider that as well. And when you have a standard like that, and then you've got somebody else with three separate businesses, but it's on one property, it's still three separate businesses. I think to cap them out in this instance where it's 2,500 that you would only pay for one business isn't really fair when you, in the last scenario, would pay the three separate businesses. Now,
Because of the location.
yeah, I totally agree with, we only pay for the physical location one time, we're not gonna pay them three different times for, the one location, but I think that, you do pay them for the, in this circumstance, it's two non-essentials and one essential, but if this comes before the board and it's not this specific circumstance, it could be up to $7,500. That's a lot of money, but.
Okay, we really need to move this on, because
Okay, but what does the Bandera River Company do? What is that? What kind of business is
Two.
that?
Yeah.
So
they
again,
collect
the
it.
businesses themselves don't matter. We're talking about the bigger picture of one physical location with multiple businesses within it. So I'm entertaining a motion. I really need to get home and get home. It was almost 1 o'clock. I don't have
And we don't really have to have a mission on this one. this specific circumstance still wouldn't.
Well, I think we
Well, I
should.
think we need an answer.
We
for
need
him.
it.
I mean,
Yes.
Something.
Well, I think they've already answered.
Well, let's make a motion.
I make a motion that we don't pay this specific person right now, because he, in my mind, doesn't qualify for anything.
No.
That's not a motion.
No.
That's what I'm
Not a
saying, I don't
That's
think.
not a
we-
motion, and we're not talking about a specific person. We're talking about
Right.
multiple applications within from one physical location with one or more type.
I don't think we need to rush into that decision, we don't know what we wanna do.
Well,
Well, I want to make a motion to base the qualification for the application on the physical location.
I'll second that, Andrea.
So is that
Based on one,
on discussion?
so one application per physical location. And who's seconded? Laura
I did.
seconded. Any discussion?
So does that mean that he would only be funded for one application?
Yes, one
Yes.
application for one physical.
One application for one physical?
And we would
Okay.
choose
So Lee,
the
we
one
have a
with the
motion on,
greater.
Lee, we have a motion on the table. Andrea said one application for physical location. Laura seconded that, and we are in discussion phase right now. So, do you have any questions or discussion?
I think I understand, one application per location.
Regardless of how many tax IDs. Okay, awesome.
And
Calling
then
for a vote? Any other discussion? Those in favor? Laura, Lynn, Lee, Andrea, Tony in favor, and those opposed?
Get your son involved.
Well, I'm involved and I don't really know how I feel. I would take probably the night to decide how I felt. So I don't think it's fair to vote on it because I don't know.
I think I think if you don't recuse yourself, if you abstain, it's a one or the other, right? It's a for or against.
Yes.
Mhm.
Can't remember.
She can abstain.
She can, but it still votes as a for. It's, I mean, if we were in a tie situation, it would float both ways. Okay, I'm gonna put you as an abstain. Okay, very good. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Get that resolved. And board comments. So we need, and the next one is, so we've established July 23rd is our next regular meeting. We'll have another one. June, thank you. I'm moving right along, aren't I? So, actually, if y'all don't mind, for agenda items that we've talked about tonight that y'all brought up, if you would not mind emailing me, and I will email them this week and I'll get them that we talked about. And I said bring them up in board comments, because I really need to close this meeting. Is there anything that we have not talked about that that you would like to bring up? I don't want to cut you off, but I just don't want to reiterate what we've already done.
Oh, I just had a question about the latest application. Is this
Oh.
the time to talk about that? I just didn't,
Yes, we do have some for review tonight.
there was
Yeah.
just a lot, the latest one.
Yeah. I have that one that's there that we just approved today. It's not done out in email. But it's over there for you to review. Everything's there to review. Okay, and Laura, are you able to stay for a few minutes if they want to?
Yes.
I can run home and come back. I just need to go.
And if we have a question or want to discuss one of them,
Does this fall into our 7-day period or a 5-day period that we have to?
No,
review?
we're starting that with the
next
going
one.
forward, the next phase, for the next applications.
Then can we have at least to tomorrow to review those?
Yeah,
Can we do that?
There's not very many.
yeah. So what time tomorrow can we? I mean,
By
by
5
5?
o'clock.
Okay.
About 5 o'clock.
All right, we'll leave them here.
Okay.
All right, thank
And if
very
you want to
much.
look at them tonight, I'll be happy to stay.
Any other,
I-
comments? All right, motion to adjourn.
To tell you the truth,
Motion to
I
adjourn.
believe so.
Meeting
But I'm
adjourned,
not
8:55 p.m.
well, I'll look at them now because I have to. Yeah, I have to go tomorrow morning.
The dogs are